Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at identifying the elements of plot within a story. This is a plot diagram. It is composed of 5 essential parts plus an extra called a narrative hook. This is the hook. This is the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution. As you can see, it starts fairly low, and then it slowly builds up the action until it reaches the climax. Thus, it falls off to the resolution. However, what do all of these parts mean? Well, we're going to be talking about that in this video. This is the official definition of the plot. The plot is the organized pattern or sequence of events that make up a story. Essentially, every story is just a sequence of actions, a sequence of things that happen, all linked together to make up a logical story. All stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the plot is essentially the literary way to break down and understand this beginning, middle, and end. The first part of the plot, or the story, as the case may be, is the hook. The purpose of the hook is to grab your attention and make the story interesting so that you continue reading. Think of it as the hook that catches the fish, although in this case the fish is not a real wet fish, but rather us, the reader. The first part, following the hook, is called the exposition, and the exposition usually happens at the start of the story. In the exposition, we are introduced to all of the characters, and we also understand the setting of the story. Most importantly, however, we are also introduced to the main problem of the story, which throughout the story, this is what the characters will try to solve. There we have our exposition. The second part of the story is called the rising action. Within the rising action, the writer starts to develop all the different forms of conflict that develop in the story. He's basically building up our interest and building up our excitement, trying to make us more and more interested and trying to pull us further into the story. The characters face deeper and deeper problems, and perhaps they may reach a problem which at first seems insurmountable. However, this will build up and build up and build up until finally the plot reaches the climax. Now, the climax of a story is called the turning point. And the purpose of the climax is that the main character comes face to face with a type of conflict which then changes him in some way. You could regard the climax as being the turning point of the story. And thus the character rises to the climax. Falling action. Once the climax has happened, the hero has fought the monster, there has been a face-off between father and son, etc. The problems that are still left over after the climax are taken care of. All the loose ends in the plot are tied up. Thus, this section is called the falling action, because slowly, the tension starts to wind down. And our character goes down the mountain. The final part of the plot is called the resolution. The resolution is essentially the conclusion or the ending of the story. It finishes up all of the issues, the problems have been solved, and the characters live happily ever after. So this is a basic outline of a plot, and obviously this plot diagram that you see in front of you can come in many different forms. All you are seeing now is just the basic outline. So now, let's put it all together. The exposition and the rising action are essentially at the beginning of the story. The climax is essentially in the middle of the story, and the falling action and the resolution essentially take place at the end of the story. Take a look at the example on the next slide. There was a prince who traveled the world looking for a princess. Here we have our exposition. It tells us who the main character was. the prince, what he was doing. He was traveling the world, and what his problem was. He was looking for a princess. A woman, claiming to be a princess, shows up at the front door. This would be the rising action. The tension is slowly being built up. The queen lays a pea on the bed, and then puts 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds on top of the pea. This would be the climax. It's the turning point. If the girl can pass the test, she will get to be the princess. If not, she won't. They saw at once she must be a real princess when she felt the pea through 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. Thus, the climax is starting to come to a solution. This is the princess because she can feel the pea. Resolution. The princess took her to be his wife and was sure he had found a real princess. All of the problems are tidied up. We have reached the solution. The prince has his princess. The end of the story.